Hello, everybody. Welcome to Yada Office Hours. My name is Steve Hostaway. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Yada. Today, I'm joined by Petar the CEO and Chief Product Officer at Yada. We're going to talk about guidebooks in the context of helping your customers serve themselves. In the end, it's important to respond to messages. That's why we have the AI autopilot tool. But if customers can get the job done without having to send a message, they're going to be much happier. When we see our top customers deploy guidebooks, they find a decrease in incoming messages of 20 to 37% after deploying guidebooks. And that means that people are viewing them. You can get those stats in your Yada dashboard to see which ones are being viewed and how many views you're receiving, so that you can actually help those guests have a great experience without needing to get out their phone and type in a message with their thumbs that you then have to respond to or let the AI do its work. So we're going to cover the waterfront with guidebooks today, starting with what they are, how you set them up. Then we're going to talk about how you actually deploy them, both through your property management system as well as through Yada, using two tools. The first one is called BuyTime, and the second is Smart Spaces. So if you are either a customer with our free guidebooks, or if you are a paying customer using the full suite of Yada tools, you are going to learn a lot about how to set them up well, how to deploy them so that your guests are able to serve themselves and get a great stay at your property, give you those 5-star reviews. Over to Petar.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Steve. And it's really just all about making the guest stay as memorable and as successful as possible, and also in an ideal world, reducing the amount of time that you are spending on repetitive messaging in customer success and customer support. And as Steve said, that's where guidebooks come in. So whether you're a free Yada user or on an upgraded Yada plan, everybody has access to Yada guidebooks. So there's no restrictions, or there's nothing that could possibly stop you from using guidebooks. And today we're going to talk about where those guidebooks live and how they're set up. We're also going to talk about how to get those guidebooks in front of guests through your property management system automations. And lastly, we're going to talk about how to get those guidebooks out in front of your guests using some really cool Yada products like BuyTime and Smart Spaces. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we are going to get started and run through the whole gamut of how to use guidebooks and how to use them to really help the guests. So the beauty of Yada guidebooks is that they are always there. So if you have a listing in Yada, regardless of whether you imported it from the property management system when you connected Yada to Guesty or Hostaway or anywhere else, or if you imported them from Airbnb, if you have a listing in Yada, you have a guidebook in Yada. So this means there's no breakdown between your listings and your guidebooks. Your listings are your guidebooks. In previous sessions, we've covered how to create content for guidebooks and how to really nail setting up the content in your guidebooks. But on a high level, each listing has a bunch of different cards in it that cover a wide range of different topics and questions and areas of interest that guests might have to answer their own questions. And as long as there's information in these listings or in listing groups, which can have a lot of different listings in it, that information is used to put together the guidebook. So to see your guidebook when you're in listing, you can just click on Preview Guidebook, and that's going to show you exactly what the guest is going to see. So you've got your home page. It renders links and it previews links and Canva docs and PDFs and things like that. So if you have those, you can include those in your guidebooks. But all those cards that show up in this listing over here, every single one of these cards, it has a corresponding card in the guidebook. So if you have things about, access, or again, this is like a test listing, so there's a bunch of random stuff in here. But in your case, it's going to be a lot more detailed. But each one of these cards and each one of these listings comes with the guidebook directly. So there's no extra setup needed. If you're putting together Yada for AI or for guidebooks and filling out those listings, you are in the best possible place because all that content is there and it's completely accessible to the guest. The second question, or the question then that follows, is how do we get these guidebooks to the guests? Because as Steve mentioned earlier, a lot of folks that are using our guidebooks are seeing, a 20, 30, in some cases, 40% reduction in the number of inbound messages. So if in a previous guest stay without guidebooks, you might have been getting, 10 messages that the guest is sending you throughout the course of their stay. Now you're looking at like 6 or 5 or 7 messages. So a huge reduction in the amount of inbound messaging. And anytime you can reduce inbound messaging, it's time that you get back to focus on things like building your business, onboarding new rentals, optimizing processes, everything else. And guests love it. If you look at pretty much every single vertical in customer success, whether it's software, hospitality, or e-commerce, like folks would really much rather solve the problem themselves and find a bit of information for themselves and figure something out for themselves than bugging anyone else. So it's like a win-win-win in every single possible way. So getting guidebooks in front of guests, if you're any one of our users, like free or paid or anything like that, you can do that in a bunch of different ways. You can manually send a guidebook to a guest by clicking copy guidebook link or copying the URL when previewing the guidebook and sending it out through the inbox and Hostaway or Guesty or Airbnb or wherever. But this is a lot of work. So we want to find some easier ways to make sure that every single guest gets a personalized guidebook. And that's where your automations in the property management system are going to come into play. So I'm going to go over here into Guesty. We're going to start with Guesty, then we're going to do Hostaway, and then we're going to do a couple of Yada methods for getting guidebooks into folks' hands. And we're going to click on the Automations tab up here, click Messages, and let's create a new message automation. And let's start with this one. I mean, you can use a template or create your own or whatever. We are going to do something one day before check-in. And you see where there's this message content over here. This is where you're going to want to make a little bit of an update. So if you're connected to Guesty, if your Yada account is integrated with Guesty, you will have a custom field for each listing and for each reservation called Yada_URL. This is going to send the right guidebook to the right guest every single time. So the moment you integrate Yada with Guesty, or the moment you integrate Yada with a property management system, we create that custom field that you can use in all of your message automations to get that guidebook URL into the hands of the guest. So we can say something like over here, like PS, any useful information, like most information you might need can be found in our guidebook. Please click here to view it. And then I'm just going to do the 2 curly braces, Yada_URL, close those 2 curly braces out. And here, we've added that guidebook URL to this automated message. And we really recommend sending this URL out in every single automated message that you have. Because the more times you get this URL in front of the guest, the higher likelihood is that they're going to click on it. And once they're in that guidebook, they're going to stay in there. Like they're going to use it to find information for themselves, and they're going to use it as a first line of defense before messaging you and before using up your valuable time to get FAQs and to get things answered. So our recommendation is to plaster that Yada_URL custom field all over your message automations in Guesty. If there's a reason, if there's not a reason for it to be in a message, like if there's not a really good reason not to have a guidebook URL in your automated messages, like put it in there. Like it literally needs to be in every single message that gets sent out. In Hostaway, the process is very similar. So you go into Inbox and you click Automations. And let's do this one. Let's find one for Welcome the Guest. Let's click Get Started. And here we're also going to include our Yada URL. But in Hostaway, there is a difference. In Hostaway, the custom field is called listing_Yada_URL. because each guidebook is associated with the listing, so that that custom field appends or like prepends the listing underscore before the name of the custom field. So for it to be able to go out through Hostaway, it does need to be in that format. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. We're going to do something like PS, same as we did in Guesty. I actually just copy that. Reduce some typing. But here we're just going to say listing underscore yada list. Got to make sure you don't have any typos. Listing underscore yada URL. PS. Most information you might need can be found on our guidebook. Please click here to view it. Listing underscore yada underscore URL. And then you click save. So a lot of folks are going to have this question, like, where do these custom fields live and how are they created? So again, it's really straightforward. The moment you integrate Yada with your property management system, we create those custom fields. And you can view those. If we go over here and Hostaway, let's take a look at our listings. And I'm going to click Manage Custom Fields, listing underscore Yada underscore URL. We're going to do the same thing in Guesty. Let's see. Properties, let's try this one. And custom fields. I always forget where these are. They're somewhere in here, but if you look at your custom fields in Guesty, they kind of change sometimes the, there we go. Custom fields. Yada underscore URL. All right, so in Guesty, it's Yada underscore URL. In Hostaway, it's listing underscore Yada underscore URL. And you can use that in all of your automated messages in your property management system.
So just to reiterate, those are created when you integrate with those systems. Is that correct?
Yes.
Like when you press integrate in Yada, then those custom fields are created in Hostaway and in Guesty.
Precisely. Like literally within 2 seconds of clicking that integrate button between Yada and your property management system, those custom fields get created. So you can start running automations with your guidebook links like within 5 minutes of getting started with Yada. Of course, like you might want to add some more content that we aren't able to auto-generate or auto-find for you, but if you wanted to, you could start sending those guidebooks out within minutes. And as we've talked about in previous videos, we're going to link them down below. Getting set up with your guidebooks is super quick, and getting content into those guidebooks is super quick. So there's really just, it's a free product, like just our base guidebooks are a free product, our custom fields are a free product. So get those out, get those into the guests' hands. Like our biggest metric here at Yada is how many hours we save. And if we can save you folks time, that is a win for us, and it's going to be a win for you. So just, use those guidebooks. They're free. They're going to collect contact info for you. They're going to save you a ton of time. They're going to stop guests from messaging you for things they don't need to. And getting them into your automated messages in your property management system is a breeze. And I know for a fact that 99.9% of you are already running automated messages out of a PMS. It's one of the best things about property management systems. So you can just add that custom field to those automations and those messages that you are already running.
Brilliant. Let's take a look at BuyTime and then Smart Spaces and wrap it up.
Absolutely. So getting guidebooks into the guests' hands can happen not only with the automations in the property management system or manually copying a link and sending it out to a guest. There's a lot of modules in Yada that contextually send guidebook information to the guest at the right time. And there's a lot of ways that we can also connect up your physical space with Smart Spaces to the Yada guidebook. So let's go through those two methods. The first is this really powerful module called BuyTime. So BuyTime essentially does what the name suggests. Like it gives you a bunch of time and a bunch of bandwidth to deal with the guest, especially if you're, offline, if you're really busy and dealing with stuff that's critical, like somebody can't get in or, somebody's having an issue with a payment or something like that. BuyTime helps you handle a lot of those kind of FAQ, run-of-the-mill standard situations that you really don't need to do in the moment, but the quicker you get back to the guest, the better. So what BuyTime does is if our AI is not able to answer a message, or if you have the autopilot turned off, it's going to send your guest a deflection message. So something like, hey, like we'll be online with you in a little bit. So you can update that BuyTime message over here. So we can say something like, hey, we are not online right now. Let's see right now, but we will get back to you as soon as possible. And then you can have this toggle over here that includes the guidebook link. And what that's going to do is send this message extra. P.S. Most of the information about this property can be found in this guidebook. And it's going to include that link in there to that guidebook for that reservation for that property. And those get a ton of clicks. And we're going to go into that. And you can also add a response delay over here. So this is basically like it's BuyTime is not gonna like it's gonna turn on if you haven't responded, in this case in 10 minutes, but you can move this down all the way to 5 minutes or all the way up to 15 minutes. We recommend keeping it at around 10 minutes. So just to reiterate, there's a lot of times when the AI, might not be able to respond, or not a lot, but there's some times where the AI might not be able to respond. And there's going to be a lot of times where you folks are just too busy to get back to that person within a matter of minutes. So what BuyTime is going to do is it's going to send them that deflection, and it's going to send them that guidebook link that's really going to help them solve that problem, or usually it's not even a problem, but get that question answered and get that information that they need in minutes and in a way that's really, really helpful to them. So again, as I said earlier in the video, across the world of customer success and customer engagement, self-serve is really the primary way that people would like to interact with folks like yourself. So whether they're buying a pair of shoes online or checking into an Airbnb or onboarding a new piece of software, like people really like helping themselves. And something to the tune of like 92 or 93% would rather help themselves than message in, and because they feel bad for messaging you, and then sometimes they might feel awkward like asking a question that they thought might be obvious or something like that. So these types of deflections and guest-facing portal products are really, really powerful in just making the guest really feel like that they're taken care of because they have these products in their hand that they can use to get information, saving you a ton of time, and also playing into the behaviors that people really want to live by, which is self-serve, not bugging you and just trying to find information for themselves. So that's a quick overview of BuyTime, and I'm going to use that into a quick segue to hop over into our dashboard and show you where these guidebook views live. So these guidebooks, like every single view that happens on your guidebook, gets logged over here in the Yada data platform. So you can see logging for all of that, like how many guidebooks were viewed, how many unique visitors there were, a bunch of different metrics around how folks are viewing your guidebooks and interacting with your guidebooks. So it's a really, really cool way to see how those message automations, those BuyTime clicks, like those guidebook clicks, etc., turn into real views with real sessions and real analytics and view it in real time. And our last, and arguably one of our most interesting and powerful ways of getting guidebooks into the guest's hand is a product that we call Smart Spaces. So Smart Spaces is essentially a way for you to generate cover cards and QR codes and scannable, interactable material for your physical property that guests can scan and interact with to, again, like find information for themselves before they ever even message you. So let's take one of these properties, for instance. Let's look at Charming South End Apartment. I'm going to click on this, which is going to generate our cover card. I'm going to click download. It usually takes a couple of seconds. And it's going to generate this PDF cover card that I can print and put somewhere in my property. And this is really powerful, really, really powerful, because now I, as a property owner, don't have to to worry about, is the stuff in my listing, like, are people going to know how to interact with it? I just put out this cover card that has this QR code on it, put it near my door, put it on the fridge, put it on the counter, like somewhere where the guests are going to see it, like have it be very visible. And they're going to use that as a way to scan it, get access to those guidebooks, and interact with that property in that way. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in real time. I'm going to open up my phone and scan this. So let's click that. Perfect. And now we are loaded. So we're here. I don't know if you can see that, but we're in that guidebook to like a minute after we created that cover card and scanned that QR code. So another really cool thing is that, in a lot of cases, you might have specific little tidbits and knickknacks and things like your Wi-Fi router or your hot tub or your HVAC that you want to get specific QR codes for. So we can do that over here. So let's say I want to create a QR code that I want to put next to my Wi-Fi router. I'm going to select Internet, and I'm going to click Download Selected. And I'm going to view this PDF. And check this out. We have this little business card size grid with old dotted lines that you guys can use to cut up and then laminate or use packing tape or something to put near the item where it needs to be. And like these little QR codes, not only will they open the guidebook, but they will open the guidebook to that card that's related to that specific amenity or to that specific FAQ. So I'm going to scan this again. I'm going to bring my phone close to it. Guide.yada.ai, scan it. And it's opened up our internet. So let me just find that. Sorry, my phone is a little wonky right now, but it opened up the internet access right here with our Wi-Fi details, and then we can also collect things like their email address and et cetera to get them connected onto the internet. So between our cover cards that we put near the entrance and that we put on countertops and on fridges and on the wall somewhere like with a lot of foot traffic, and these specific little business card size QR codes, you've got a lot of coverage in unit so that folks open up that guidebook and interact with that information without, again, ever having to message you. So between the automations that are getting sent out in the property management system, the BuyTime module that's sending out guidebooks if nobody gets back to the guest within a few minutes, and between smart spaces that are just putting QR codes in strategic places around your units so that folks can scan them and interact with those guidebooks, you're getting a lot of really, really good coverage and a lot of like possibilities where every situation where a guest could have to interact with that guidebook and serve themselves and hopefully not message you, they are doing that, and they are just reducing the amount of volume that they're sending you in terms of inbound messaging. So we started this video off saying, we could probably get you like 40% reduction in inbound guest messaging, and this is how: by getting guidebooks into guests' hands before they arrive, getting guidebooks into guests' hands when nobody gets back to them in a few minutes, and by putting QR codes to our Smart Spaces product around your apartment. And that is, it's a quick overview of guidebooks and getting guidebooks in front of the guests.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for the overview. Super helpful. And folks, if you aren't using digital guidebooks yet, get on it. It's a very helpful way to be able to update content in real time and not have to recreate a whole Canva document or a Google sheet. It's the way to do it. It's the way people want to interact with you. And on Yada, they're free. And then if you're a paying user, you have all the other ways to get them into people's hands, see those analytics, create that contact database that you can then remarket to, and grow your business. So thanks for joining us today. Peter, thanks for the walkthrough, and we'll see you next time on Office Hours.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Look forward to seeing everyone next week.